Hi there, welcome back to my channel. My name is Shelby and today I'm going to be doing my weekly reading wrap up from the 18th of March until today, the 24th. I read a total of 7 books this week. I read 3 arcs and I got to 2 thrillers, 3 romance, 1 historical fiction, and 1 that is more just like contemporary literary fiction. So I did get a nice array of genres this week, so I'm really happy about that. I will link all of the books down below and I'll just get right into it. Let me know if you've read any of these books and if you enjoyed them. So the first book that I read is by Stacey Hart and it is called Piece of Work, and it is the first book in the Red Lipstick Coalition series. I think there's 3 or 4 books, but this is the first one I've read. 2 other books by Stacey Hart and I really enjoyed them, and the cover of this one was so cute, so I wanted to read it. This is about a girl named Rin. She is a art history PhD student at NYU, and she gets an internship at the Met in like the art history department, and she's pretty shy. She doesn't really stand out. She's really tall and lanky and always just kind of tries to hide in her clothes and just isn't very confident. Well, on her first day at her job, she realizes just how out of place she is. Everyone's in nice outfits, they exude confidence, and she doesn't. And she comes face to face with her boss, who his name is Court. He's really handsome, really confident, and she thinks he's really attractive but does not feel good enough for him. So she does start to find her confidence, and it starts with a little bit of red lipstick that her friends make her put on. She gets some clothes that fit her, and as soon as she goes to work kind of a changed appearance person, her boss starts noticing her, and because her appearance has changed, her personality starts to change as well. And so it is a romance between her and Court. He's her boss, so it's definitely a little taboo. I didn't love this story as much as I wanted to. I found Court to be kind of a jerk, and I didn't like his personality at all. And I didn't really like Rin that much. I thought she was okay, but I just really didn't understand her character all that much, and I thought she was a little weak considering she was newly confident. So not a favorite. I was really expecting to love this because I loved the other 2 Stacey Hart books I read. I will continue on in the series, I think, just because they are available on my Kindle Unlimited subscription, so I won't have to pay for them. But definitely not my favorite by this author by any means, so I gave this one 3 stars. And then the next one I read is actually an arc. It is by Alifair Burke and it's called The Better Sister. And I've read one other Alifair Burke book called The Wife and I really enjoyed it. I think that was her 2018 release. And so this one is actually coming out April 16, so it's only coming out in a few weeks. And this one is another like suspense drama. And this is about a married couple named Chloe and Adam. They have a 16-year-old son named Ethan, and one night Chloe comes home and she discovers her husband Adam is murdered and he's dead on their floor. And it's kind of about the investigation into what happened to him. And well, since he's dead, the mother of Ethan has to come back into their life because technically Chloe is not Ethan's mom. He's actually his stepmom, so his birth mom has to come back to where they live and kind of be with him. Well, it gets more complicated because the mother of Ethan is actually Chloe's sister Nikki. So Chloe married Nikki's ex-husband. So that is pretty dramatic, and she's pretty nervous about Nikki coming back into their lives because Nikki doesn't always have her stuff together, and that's kind of why she's been absent from Ethan's life. But as it turns out, when Nikki returns, all she wants is to help them and figure out what happened. But all of a sudden, the police are starting to look at their household, thinking that someone who lives in their house committed this murder, specifically Ethan, and Nikki and Chloe are working together to do anything they can to protect Ethan because they both love him. And there's some twists and turns. I enjoyed this. I didn't like it as much as The Wife, but I did like it. I gave it 3.5 stars, and I definitely think it was worth the read. And then after that, I read another arc. It is by Carol Wire called The Dare. It is the 3rd book in the Detective Natalie Ward series. I'd read Last Lullaby a couple of weeks ago, and I read The Birthday a couple months ago. Enjoyed both of them, and I enjoyed this one equally as much, almost, I think. It has the same kind of fashion as the other 2. It's told mostly in the perspective of interviews. of suspects with the detectives, things like that. And this one was about a mother named Jane, and she came home one afternoon from work and discovered that her daughter Savannah, who's 13 years old. She didn't come home from school, so she's missing. Well, the police do find her body and she's dead. And then after that, several other young women around the same age going to the same school start disappearing and being found dead in the same manner. And Detective Natalie Ward is on the case trying to figure out who is committing these crimes and is it anyone that she is interviewing, and are people's alibis solid, things like that. And it was really enjoyable if you like kind of police procedural kind of books, and I really enjoy those. So I gave this one 3.5 stars, and it comes out April 25th. The next book I have to talk about is Beartown by Frederick Bachman. I was super excited to read this from my library because I've heard nothing but amazing things about this book, and I have yet to read a book by Frederick Bachman. And I have to say the hype is real. I really enjoyed this book. So it's about a small town named Beartown, and everyone there is obsessed with hockey. And it's told through a ton of different perspectives of people in Beartown, which usually I don't like a lot of perspectives, but in this instance it really worked. So it follows several of the hockey players on the team, high schoolers. One of them is Kevin. He is projected to be in the NHL. He's like a local celebrity, and he comes from a really wealthy family. His best friend's name is Benji, and Benji's kind of the bad boy. And he kind of is always on the curtails of Kevin, and they're always together. And then there's a guy named Emot, who he is recently upped into like a higher level of hockey. He's way underprivileged compared to the other guys, and he's had to work really hard to get where he has been. And him and Kevin, so Emot and Kevin, have a crush on a girl named Maya. And she's 15. She doesn't really care about hockey, but both of them actually are attracted to her. And it just so happens that Maya's dad is the GM, so the general manager for the hockey league, and his name is Peter. And something bad happens to Maya, and when she tells the truth about it and tells the town about it, they are up in arms and they don't really believe her. And it's kind of her story and everyone's story in the town of what happened to Maya, and kind of how the town receives her truths and how lonely it is for people not to believe her. And this one was really heartbreaking. It got me in the feels so bad, but in the best way possible. It was a really touching story and really important, and I gave this one 5 stars. And then after that, I read All or Nothing at All by Jennifer Probst. This is the last book, the third and final book in the Billionaire Builders series, and I actually unhauled this book just because I wasn't a huge fan of the series, and this final book wasn't anything special for me. So this one follows the third brother named Tristan of the Pierce brothers. They own a business together in construction, and this is about Tristan and Sydney. So 7 years ago they had a romance. They've known each other their whole lives, and Sydney was working for the Pierce brothers and still is, but 7 years ago her and Tristan had a romance, and he left for New York and left her behind. And now 7 years later, she is a single mom taking care of her 7-year-old daughter Becca and still working for the Pierce brothers. And Tristan is back in town and working again with his brothers, and it's kind of some tension between her and him, and she's harboring some secrets that could tear them apart, and they start to have an attraction to one another again. But like I said, she has this secret and it could definitely tear them apart. And I didn't love this book. I think it might have been my least favorite of the series. I found the romance between Sydney and Tristan to not be very good. I don't know, I didn't feel the emotional connection. It did have a lot of sexy, steamy scenes, but none of them seemed really appropriate and almost had me laughing out loud at times. But it's okay. I'm going to pass this series along to someone who might enjoy it more, and I gave this one 2.5 stars. And then I read Lost Roses by Martha Hall Kelly, and this is coming out April 9th. I got an arc of it. I loved Lilac Girls, and this is supposed to be like a prequel to it, but you can definitely read it as a standalone. And instead of taking place in World War II, this one took place in World War I and follows the mother of one of the characters from Lilac Girls. And so this one follows 3 different women, Eliza, Sophia, and Varinka. So Eliza is a New York socialite. She's married. She has a daughter named Carolyn, and her friend Sophia is Russian, and she is a cousin to the Romanovs. And this is, right when World War I breaks out, and there's still the Tsar and Tsarina, and she is related to them. Well, she's really good friends with Eliza. Eliza goes and visits her in Russia, and then as soon as she like comes home, war kind of breaks out, World War I, and Sophia is forced to flee from the city and kind of hide out in her estate in the country. But there is a revolution going on with bandits, and they're targeting the bourgeoisie, including Sophia. And she has an employee in the house taking care of her young son, and the employee's name is Varinka, and she's the nanny to her little son Max. And when they get attacked by bandits, the family gets taken hostage, and Varinka leaves with Max and basically steals / protects him. And it's their story, as well as Sophia trying to find her son and Eliza trying to find her best friend. And this was a very touching story about 3 strong women, and I really enjoyed it. I didn't like it as much as Lilac Girls, but I am partial more to World War II fiction just because I'm more familiar with it, but it doesn't mean that it's better. I'm just not as familiar with Russian fiction, especially during World War I, but I did enjoy getting to learn more about it because it's just something I'm not familiar with, and I ended up giving this one 4 stars. And like I said, it comes out April 9th. And then the last book that I have to talk about is The Simple Wild by K.A. Tucker. I haven't read a K.A. Tucker book in a while. I read 10 Tiny Breaths a couple of years ago and I liked it. I don't really remember what it was about, but The Simple Wild got really good ratings and it was available at my library, so I checked it out. And this is one of her more romantic novels rather than a romantic suspense. And I loved this book. I wasn't expecting to love it so much. So it's about a girl named Kala, and she's having a really bad day. She gets laid off from her job. She discovers her boyfriend could be cheating on her, and she gets a phone call from her dad's neighbor saying that her dad is dying of lung cancer. She hasn't seen her dad in 24 years since she was 2 years old, so she's 26 now. And they're asking for her to come and visit them in Alaska, and she's in Toronto, so it's quite the trip. And she's pretty hesitant, but now that she doesn't have a job or a boyfriend, like nothing's holding her back, so she decides that now is a better time than ever to go and try to reestablish a relationship with her dad, especially now that he might be passing away. So she makes the trip to Alaska, and she has to take a very small plane to the little town that they're from because it's very much in the bush. And since her dad owns a charter plane company, he has one of his pilots take her there, and his name is Jonah, and he is just a total rugged guy. He has a huge beard, he's pretty gruff, and it's like hate at first sight with him and Kala. They do not get along. He thinks she's a high maintenance city girl, and she thinks he is just way too rugged and kind of a jerk. And the banter between them is so funny. And when she gets to Alaska, she realizes that Jonah is her dad's next door neighbor, and it just gets even worse for her because her and Jonah don't get along. So it's about a romance between her and Jonah, and maybe they don't hate each other as much as they think, as well as her reestablishing a relationship with her dad, whose name is Ren, and him battling lung cancer. And she realizes that she loves both of them and that she's gonna have to probably say goodbye to both of them, and it's really hard for her. And this one was really touching and got to me really bad. It was really emotional, but it was really good. I don't really hear anyone talking about this book, but I think I'm going to purchase my own copy because I just loved it that much, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. So those are the 7 books that I read this week. Like I said, I will link them all down below, and that's all I have for you guys today. I'll see you guys on my next one. Bye.